So, hi guys, this is a quick sort of beginner's guide to sort of opening an image in RAW. So if you've never really used a RAW image or taken a RAW image before with your camera, and you've only really shot JPEGs, like a lot of people do, because they either don't have the software yet or they're a bit sort of scared to get into the RAW side of things. It's a bit like going from auto to manual settings in the camera. You have, say, an image like this. I would suggest generally trying to get a balanced image, so you're not overexposed too much and you're not underexposed too much if you're in this sort of situation. So if you've got a relatively bright sky and you're in some woodland which has got a relatively sort of shady area, you're going to struggle to get sort of a balanced image. So if we were to give an example, if we were to expose for the sky, you've suddenly got a lot of shadows down here. If I was to expose for the woodland, something like that, you're kind of, well, about 3 stops sorry, 3 stops of light comparable, so you've got that much to play with. So the easiest way to deal with this in the RAW settings is make sure you've got your color profile about right. So I'm using RGB, so Adobe Color. There are sRGBs and a few other different ones you have. Your white balance, I generally leave it as shot because I choose what I want. Then you've got color temperature, which is obviously you can adjust the Kelvin. So at the moment, that's what the white balance was. Tint +2 for some reason, not really sure. Then you've got your exposure, so we've just upped and down that, so as you can see, we can get the exposure correct in the sky, and then in the woods. So what we'll do is leave that at 0. So all these should be 0. So we run that. What I tend to do first of all always is just quickly push auto levels and see what happens. So that's actually done pretty well for Photoshop. It is quite clever. So auto levels change. It's basically looked at the scene and thought, oh, some highlights, shadows that need dealing with, and it's dealt with them. The colour and everything is not changed, so it's still 5500. So basically what we're going to do now is we're going to tweak it. So I'm quite happy with that actually as an image, but I want a bit more detail out of the clouds. So I'm going to drop that down a little bit. The blacks, so starting at the bottom, we've got the blacks which you can see there. If I lower the blacks, you're going to lose detail in the sky. Oh, sorry, not in the sky, in the woodland. So brought that down a little bit, which has added a bit more sharpness and detail in the trees. But what I'm going to actually do now is crank the shadows up a bit, which then gives you detail back here. But actually, it's still left it relatively sharp up there. Highlights are right down the bottom. Contrast is -26. As you can see, if we turn it up, your clouds have lost its detail, and basically the woodland's gone over-saturated. So if we bring it back down, right down to what you see, the opposite is a lot more sort of calmer on the colours. Also, the cloud has become more detailed again. So we'll take it back up to what it was, -24, 25, 26, something like that, which is pretty good. Half a stop difference. Blacks, whites, the shadows are up the top near sort of 92. Clarity, if you soften it down, it will go soft. If you go up the other side, but the only trouble is if you go up, you'll suddenly see lines of around leaves and things like that. You'll suddenly see how it changes. You end up with lighter areas around things, which is not advisable. I mean, tweaking it a little bit to give it a slightly sharper, more sort of punchy image works quite well. You've got the vibrance, so if we come back out, we can drop the vibrance to make it feel a lot calmer. We can go ridiculous and make it look stupid. But I tend to leave this at 0, unless you're tweaking things. To be honest, the colour is pretty good. So that is a basic way of adjusting your RAW files, but you need to try and get the exposure correct. There's no point trying to get it correct, trying to get a relatively good balanced exposure with relatively good highlights and good shadows. That way it gives you a lot more chance of actually bringing the shadows out without causing noise or pixelation and stuff like that, compared to the sky where you're not going to be able to get the detail back. There are other options on here. So you've got sharpening, which is your radius size and everything like that. You can adjust to suit. But I just generally leave it at about 40, 1 pixel radius, 25 detail. Noise reduction if you need to. We don't really need it. And then you've got your hue, your saturation, luminance. So if we want to go for saturation, for example, we just drop down. There you go. So you can reduce the greens right down, or you can crank them right up. So you've got quite a bit of adjustment there. Same as the sky. Drop it down to a black and white sky, or really blue. When I drop the greens down there, you can still see it's relatively green. It's probably the yellows. There you go. So it's what it's done there is, see, you've left the oranges, so we can crank the oranges up or down, so you've lost those as well. And there's some red bushes there with red flowers as well. So you've got a lot of control over different things. So we can bring the yellows back up and the greens as well. You've then got luminance. So you can obviously make your different things punch or not punch out in colour. Same as the greens there, you can dial it right down. You can just mess around really. You can make the sky brighter or darker. The sky darker, which is if you go black and white, another one here, it's almost at the moment, it's almost looks infrared. With black and white, it's a completely different thing of adjustments, I find. You need to generally bring down the exposure slightly because it's going to be a bit more contrasty, and because there's no colour, you're relying on the lights and the darks, so you need a bit more sort of the lights and the darks to contrast against each other to give you a more interesting image. But what you can do here, so you go to so you knew the sky is blue, so what we can do now is bring it right down, almost to black. Same with the greens, you can mess around with the greens, you can mess around with everything basically, and it just allows you to add that little extra interest to the photo you're messing around with, either in black and white or in colour. So that is a simple way of adjusting a photo in RAW for anybody who's sort of not really done it much or hasn't used Photoshop for a while and is trying to remember. It's so easy to ruin an image by going a bit too much. So I would suggest generally smaller amounts of adjustments, just little tweaks here or there. Yes, on that one there, the highlights I've dropped hugely down, but if you look at it when we turn it up, you've lost all the detail in the cloud, and obviously the shadows as well. So you can drop the shadows right down. So interesting as it is, there's a lot of things you can do, but there's a lot of things you can do to ruin an image rather than actually make it look better. So going from that to that, for example, is so easily done, and it's just made the picture stand out a little bit better. And then you just tweak it just a little bit here or there, just to make it a bit more pleasing for the eye, and then your job done. So then you just click OK. I mean, there's two ways to do it. You can click Save, and that will basically just saves it you can save it as a JPEG straight away if you don't want to do any other editing, or you can click Open Image now, and then you can basically do some more editing. So if you wanted to remove some bushes or something, so if you want to remove those bushes or whatever you want to do, you can then start working on the image as a file. But other than that, please subscribe, please click the notification bell, and I should post some more videos soon.